Joe Rogan. How you doing, Tony?
What's going
How you
on,
doing?
bro?
What's going on? I'm not going to introduce who you are or anything. We're just going to talk for 3 hours. You ever do DMT?
Oh yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Justin Thomas here with Tony Teflon. He is so gracious to join me. I know that you have been under the weather. We're reliving some Boxing Days back there. We're talking about the rain, and Tony is one of the OGs, if not the OG of the Thrones community, and one of my favorite people to discuss Game of Thrones with. Because I say, Tony, you want to talk about Game of Thrones, and when Tony finally has time to do it, he says, yeah. I say, what do you want to talk about? He's like, we can talk about anything. I want to know why? Because you can cover anything. You know your shit and you got it. And I enjoy it. I like the way you present it. You give us facts. You give it to us in a really entertaining way. And you just know your stuff. You ain't got it. I sent you talking points earlier, remember?
Yes, sir.
You're like, is it just you and me? I was like, yeah. You're like, yeah, we're good. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, I'm just doing that for me. But yeah, no, Tony is for those of you that don't know him, which is probably a moot point because that's probably not something that's happening in the chat right now. But yeah, he's been in the game for a while, and we're going to talk about season 8 expectations. We're going to talk about what we think is going to happen, meaning what we think, not going to be making bold claims about what we know is going to happen, but giving our educated views and just having fun with the story that we love so much. So Tony, introduce yourself and tell everybody where they can find you.
No doubt. What's the deal, my people? You know who it is. Down Tony Teflon. I'm in the mall building my head. I'm my man JT. And we gonna get into this. You know, I got the Trayvon Martin hoodie up tonight. You know what I'm saying? Doing my thing right there. As always, the Thug Mug is back in hand, feeling much better. As you know, I was under the weather for a little while and stuff like that. I really wasn't gonna be on camera, but JT was like, Tef, man, you know, this is how we roll. And I said, yes, we do roll like that. So I'm definitely live on camera for you, baby, and everything else. And we're going to get this thing going right now. What up to everybody in the chat? Westerosi Ninja. What up to Peter Griffins? What up to Mackenzie Burns? Sarah Charles up in here. Georgie Jedi. As always, the OTDA holding down the Gazette for the Don wherever we go. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we can pop this over. It doesn't matter about topics for me. I've read these books up and down, whether it's A Song of Ice and Fire, whether it's Dunkin' Egg, whatever, everything. I know it. I'm ready to rock with it, and we're going to have some fun tonight. So hopefully everybody out there got a little drink, you know what I mean? And we can get this thing popping. Let's do this, baby.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said you ain't going to be on camera. I go, that's not the Don. That's not the Don. So yeah, I think I might have been froze on you for the opening. But yeah, everybody, we're gonna be talking about season 8 again. We're gonna be talking. I was on AU last night, and we were talking very technically the approach that I'm taking for my videos. We're gonna keep it a little bit looser tonight, but again, everything that I come at you with comes at a from a place of intelligence and from a place that is looking at story structure and narrative theory and so forth, and knowledge of the source material. Tony is somebody that is very, very, very well versed in the story as well. So, what I really like to push and what I like about Tony is, we are posing ideas, but it doesn't have to be absolutes. It's like, hey, what are we looking forward to? If we got a different view on it, we got a different view on it. For anybody to claim that they are absolutely correct about something or anything like that, that just ain't my approach to content. I just love the community, and I got into the community because of people like Tony, and I'm lucky enough to have him on. So season 8, a lot for them to do. A lot for them to do, for sure. The first thing I'm going to bring up, and let me know about all of the camera because I'm running a little bit of a different program here in the audio if there's anything wrong, guys. But Tony, did you know that the actor that plays the Night King did an interview?
Yes, sir.
Recently?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I did just preface it. He said that he is out for revenge. So I've found this to be very interesting. I found this to be, I don't know if this is just, a little bit of hyperbole, or this is actually something that is to take to heart. I have to believe that he did one interview that I'm going to go ahead and believe that he is gunning for one person in the battle for Winterfell. So he says it's for revenge. So we have to think, what does the Night King want to revenge? I would say children of the forest for sure, right? I mean, I think they don't get enough hate, but who is still alive walking around that he can get revenge on? You know, who is this person he's singling out? Do you have any specific opinions on this? I find it to be a very interesting comment that really changes my view on how the Battle of Winterfell is going to go down.
Yeah, when I heard the interview from the guy, I took it as half and half, like half the way the weight. Some of the things he said doesn't fit with the character that George R. R. Martin has presented us with. Him saying that the Night's King is only evil and some characters are good and evil, that doesn't fit with what George R. R. Martin has put forth. So I can't believe that part. I don't know how much he's read the books, but I think that as an actor, they have to give you something to motivate you by. They have to tell you something to make you want to act that way, to emote on screen. So I think they're just saying, hey, you hate everyone, so let's look like that. If you talk about revenge, revenge is always mean that you've been wronged and you feel you have been wronged, and that's why you want revenge. So the only one that we have seen that has wronged him was the children of the forest, right? So if they're all dead, and it seems that they're all dead, it would have to be something else. Now, when I'm dealing with George R. R. Martin, I can't see this Night King character just being some random man that the children of the forest just strapped to the tree and stuck something in his chest. That does not fit George's work, and that does not fit the revenge angle. Something else has to happen to make him want this revenge. Now, I would, if people want to go with Bran Stark being the Night's King, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense for this guy just to be a nobody, a no name that no one has ever heard of before. Because if they just say this guy wants revenge and he wants revenge for Jon Snow, why would he just want revenge for Jon Snow? What does he know about Jon Snow that he would need revenge? What did Jon Snow do to him? You know, so if you do believe that Bran Stark is the Night's King, you could say that would be a revenge situation if somehow Bran walked into this guy while he was being changed and got stuck in the past. Then Bran will want revenge on the children of the forest and maybe even himself, or know that he has to take care of himself in order to get out of this situation. So it would either have to be Bran Stark, right, or Jon Snow, but I would lean right now from everything that I just said that it would have to be Bran Stark is who he's searching for revenge.
Yeah, there's very few people that have the unique ability to exist in multiple time frames, right? Which I'm not a huge fan of. But what I take it as, like, I'm pretty much in line with you here. You know, like Jon Snow, if you wanted to kill him, then why did he do the "What's up, bro" so many times?
Exactly.
Like, what is the intention of in show only of the Night King, of course, because he is a show only character, but he has shown that he is not looking for complete destruction, because he has not completely destructed everything. Now, he has not been pleasant, like I've spoken about before, hard home and all that, but he himself, if you don't count the white kills, you know, he's only killed a dragon that we've seen on camera. I see him saving a baby, or taking a baby and changing it. That leans me towards they want to continue their species, right? Like, they definitely didn't want to become White Walkers. It didn't look like that process was, voluntary. That definitely was against their will. So they have now embraced that, and they want to continue that to a point. I would have to think, unless they're looking for a remedy in some way, which is very abstract, and I don't believe that to be a motivation. I'm looking for motivations to get goals and desires, and then figure out why they're doing what they're doing. What I'm thinking here is, because it's very shocking to me to hear one person, right? You know, like the
Mhm.
one person that he's coming at, like, that was shocking to me, because it's like, who could be that one person? Like, and Bran is only reasonable suspect, and I hate it, and I've said it a million times that I don't like the whole resolution coming from magic, because magic is magic, and it's better left ambiguous. Like, they've done such a good job with it so far, so don't go to this point where you make all of this geopolitical, all of this internal struggle, all of this complex great narrative of grays, and then have it all solved with magic. Don't. That's like throwing it in the garbage. It's like, that's just like, I couldn't figure it out, so yeah, magic did it. Magic playing a role is fine, but what I'm thinking is, he's saying he's coming after one person in particular. That does add up with what I'm saying. It seems like he has intent, right, Tony? Because like if he was just like a madman, I mean, we've all encountered some madmen. Like he ain't gonna sit there and hold back, right? Like he's had some intention. He has moved at a pace that is not like he wasn't in a hurry until he was when he got the dragon and so forth. So would you say it's fair to say that it seems like he has a plan, right?
There's no doubt. So when we deal with the White Walkers and everything that we've seen from the White Walkers, we have to just go back. Now, you see, people will say that maybe he's looking for a Night's Queen. Well, if that was the case, he had his pick of the litter with Craster's daughters, and they didn't want any of those women, right? So it can't be they're looking for a woman to reproduce. They had their chance to get as many women as they want, and they didn't want any of them. They only wanted the boys. So that has to be out. Now, you could say, does he want revenge on Gilly? Because Gilly took the last baby from him. I don't know if he want revenge on her for doing that. And I don't know if the story would be that the whole story that we have seen from the Night's King would automatically switch to such a minor character of Gilly. Now, we do know that in the books, Gilly is named after the Gilly flower. And if we look up the Gilly flower, I can't pronounce the actual name of it, but I know that it means the mother of evening. So yeah, he is like the mother of them. So I can't see how them wanting revenge on her for taking baby Sam. Now, in the books, I believe that baby Sam is the Night's King. And that's the way it's going to play out, because Jon Snow in the books thinks he's slick and he switches the babies. And he tries to leave baby Sam at the war thinking that he's no threat because Melisandre is going to burn Mance Rayder's baby. But Jon Snow doesn't really realize that this is going to be the Night's King. This is their Azor Ahai. He messed up by leaving him at the war. I think that's how that's going to play out there during the books. So when we deal with him and his motivations, there's really not many people for him to be motivated to get, other than either Jon Snow or Bran. If you want to say Daenerys, you would have to believe that somehow they knew that the birth of the dragons were going to happen and they're trying to stop the birth of the dragons. But these are not Braavosi people. These weren't people enslaved from the Doom. So they shouldn't have no fear of these dragons. And there were no dragons around that we know of during the first long night for them to be afraid of. So I can't really see it being Daenerys. So again, it comes back to two people to me, Jon Snow and Bran. And I think if Bran is stuck inside of the Night's King, it makes more sense that he is trying to take out his anger on himself for putting himself in this position to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. I would rule out Jon personally. I would rule him out, but I don't think that there's any problem with, you know, he's the only other suspect. The only thing is, if Jon is the person he's trying to get revenge on, why would he wait? But the thing with Bran, I think is the only thing that technically makes sense. I just hate it because that like it's some Deus Machina shit coming up, and you know what I mean. But here's the thing: he's coming back and looking for revenge. So what is he vengeful for? Is it the creation? Because of course that was not willingly. So it's not the children of the forest, because evidently they're not anywhere to be found at this point. So the first men is, you could reason, because we have to have empathy for the, you know, like he was created in a foul way that was against his will, and he's become a monster. Now he's embraced it and he's just trying to continue on. I can get behind that story, but I can't get behind him just like going after a random person that's like semi-connected in some obscure way. It's like, is he trying to get revenge for just to be vengeful, or is he trying to get revenge, meaning like he's going to alter his situation through revenge? Now, the only thing I can think, and it's obscure and it's petty, but you know, there's a lot of those first men down in those crypts, right? The Stark Kings. So now he resurrects the dead. Can he maybe, I mean, literally like the most spiteful thing you can do, like you kill somebody once because you hate them and then you resurrect them to kill them again or something. Like, I mean, like I'm just looking for people that are alive. This is like you telling me that James Wilkes Booth is back for like revenge or something. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, well, who is he getting at? And like, oh, and Justin, be careful because James is looking for one guy. I'm like, well, who? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who's alive right now that this is like, are you going after like a fifth generation ancestor here? And it's, you know, the timeline's even more skewed with what we're dealing with. So where is this vengeance coming from? I found that to be very interesting. Also, we have to realize that they've made a deal, right? At one point, they made a deal and they're back. So the assumption is, what broke the deal? Well, can the Night King, knowing in very, like, not definitively, but there's reason to believe that they can see future and past. There's proof for this, but he's more in the know of what's going on. Nobody knows what the like terms of this pact was that's living right now. So I don't buy into like the whole like, oh, they took the baby like in the show, like, so that's the reason, like, because that's like, it's a little nonsensical, because then your whole catalyst is like a deal that was made without the knowledge of the people that are upholding, like meant to uphold it. You know, they are the people that violated the deal. It's like, well, how are they in the wrong? Like, you didn't tell them the rules, and then, you know, then you're coming back at them with vengeance. It's like, I see the reemergence of magic, just like how magic has been portrayed so well. And I want to say this, people get on me, they think I hate it. I'm just saying, if magic is the the actual conflict resolution here, I'm gonna be a little bit upset. But like the dragons are back, so maybe that means that somebody that's made through magic, like the Night King in our show, is going to have a little bit more power, right? Like, this is his time to make his move. It's not like, oh, you violated the terms. It's like, oh shit, like because it's clear the why, like there's all these correlations. The wildfires, you know, better everything. Like, everything is becoming more powerful as far as the occult goes. So it's like, yeah, if something that is a magical being to at least some extent is looking to make a move, it's going to be when magic's on the rise. So magic's on the rise. I don't think it's like, well, you did this or you did that. It's like, oh man, so he's really there for, because like, you know, Sam took the baby, because, you know, also they didn't kill Sam. It wasn't the Night King, but they walked right by him, and he did kill another one.
He's a big boy. They like they see him. He's a big guy, you know, so they see him.
John killed a White Walker in front of the Night King, and he was just, again, stood there, unless he's just really working on that posturing. So what it comes down to for me is, what is the message of this? The message of this, you know, most likely is that when everything comes again, because George is not a pacifist. George is not for war in general, but when he got his CEO status, conscientious objector for Vietnam, he says this in interviews. He talks about how he was not against all war. He even answers in an interview that World War II, he would have fought it. So George believes that there are just wars, you know. So like the belief of we can't have a good versus bad is, yes, correct in the sense of there's always going to be like gray area. And I think it's enough gray area to think, sorry, Gray, I know it's trademark, but you know, I love you. It's enough to just, you know, leave it up to like, they were made against their will. They were weaponized, you know, so like they have a reason to be pissed off. I don't know if they have a reason to be seeking out somebody that's alive right now, but this is not like like Token. What he's talking about with Token is how Token thinks a good man makes a good king because he has good intentions, and that'll result in good results. Good intent does not always result in good results. You know, like, just because you want to do good doesn't mean you're going to do good. We see a lot of people wanting to do good throughout this whole series. In your theory for the book, it is an example of John wanting to do good, but possibly fucking himself. So, you know, we have a whole bunch of instances of people trying to do the right thing, right, within the constraints of the organization or the culture or their lofty beliefs, like the Starks or, you know, Tywin. It's all them wanting to do it. That everybody is on their own hero's journey. People are like, oh, it's not your typical tropey stuff. It's like, you know, everybody thinks they're their own hero in this story. So like, don't get that jaded. But these White Walkers in the living can come, and they can have, this is supposed to be the most as far as time goes, it's supposed to be like the longest cinematic like sequence of battle ever to be presented, like in film and both television as a medium. So like, obviously, like, it's gonna go down. I think that the real monster is the one that, when the living went against the dead, the one living that didn't side with the other living is the monster, Cersei. And I know I've said this a lot, but you see what I'm getting at here? It's like, we can still have this big clash, but it's like, what is the Night King's game? do you think he's trying to make a deal? Because this whole spiteful revenge thing throws a wrench in that for me. That really throws me off because I just don't think that fits the story.
It doesn't, but the whole thing is that, as I said, I don't know how much this actor knows about George R. R. Martin, the books. I think he's taking his cues from Dan and Dave, and I don't think they're going to go into that one. I think they just want him to project a certain thing on the screen. So by them saying, let's don't be confused, he's not good at all. All he wants to do is burn the world. Now, we know that George doesn't write like that. This is not the Joker. He's not going to get a pile of money and just set it on fire just to do it. This guy, and as you're saying, he's after revenge. The only thing that makes sense if he's after revenge is it has to be someone that we know. It can't be someone who doesn't matter. It has to be something that we know. And we look at the Children of the Forest and the White Walkers, how they're created and everything else. They signed that pact first. They were supposed to be cool. And then behind the back of the First Men, when they signed that pact, they created the White Walkers and started the Long Night. And then it wasn't until the man was just about defeated and they found him that they said, hey, we know a way how to beat them. And I think that the Children of the Forest did that thing, like, hey, we're going to save them right now. And after we save them, they're going to respect us and they're going to love us and everything else. We're going to show them how to beat them, but it didn't go down like that. And then these White Walkers, it's like, hey, these dudes flipped on us. So now we have to take these dudes out, but they're gone. All right, they're not going to be no God's Eye, some Children of the Forest in the God's Eye this season. It would make no sense that every time that they've shown the Children of the Forest in this show, they've shown that Leaf character. No matter what year it was, no matter what. It makes no sense for her to have sacrificed herself in the way that she did for them to have a bunch of more Children of the Forest running around the God's Eye. They're not going to do that. Her sacrifices should be the end of her race. That's why she did that. So that should be the end of that. So there should be no other thing for them to be angry at. Besides, only thing I could see is Bran Stark. It has to be Bran Stark. Yeah. And I think that you can even go back to when Bran Stark was going to be assassinated by the Cat's Bar dagger dude. This is a guy who had a Valyrian steel dagger. And we know that Valyrian steel's main purpose is to kill the White Walkers. And I think that was the first hint that we got to see that this Night King is connected to Bran Stark, because there's no reason for them to have that Valyrian steel dagger to kill such an ornate weapon. They could have smashed him with a brick. They could have smashed him with a knife, but he had a Valyrian steel dagger for a reason. And the fact that the Arya Stark brings this up in the show, why did the Cat Spore have a Valyrian steel dagger? I think shows proof right there that what's going down is that Bran Stark is stuck and he is inside this Night King for the show purposes. Let me give a shout out real quick to who I believe is Christina the Sphinx, my girl in the chat. And I've not seen Christina the Sphinx in the chat in a goddamn long time. She ain't in my chat, but goddamn, at least you're here with JT and me. And I'm so happy to see you, Christina. Thank you for coming out here and joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I'm of the mind that there has to be some sort of a deal made again, because I don't see the utter destruction of either party, because I see this story, covering obviously a multitude of issues here. We have the geopolitical stuff. Like I was talking to you a little bit about this earlier with, what everybody's talking about, is there going to be an Iron Throne? It's like, and I see a lot of people discussing, like, is there going to like literally be it or not? It's like, well, they can, melt down the throne or not, but are we talking about like a change of the political landscape whatsoever? The show is very heavy-handedly, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but like feudalism dies like once the lords, like the vassal lords lose control. Once there's a plague or a mass event that leads to a lot of death. Let's think about how many lords are still alive in Westeros right now. Like, okay, you got Sweet Robin, because Dorne. We're talking show only, people. It will do a book only episode when the books come out, and because there's plenty of family trees, because the session is far more fleshed out there. But Dorne is, there's nobody at a seat of power in Dorne right now. There's nobody. The Sand Snakes died, and so did the Martells in Area Hota. So that's all Dorne. The Reach, done. Forget about Marjorie's cousins. She mentioned them once. They're sorry they did that in the script. But you know what I mean? Like, we have no great houses in the Reach, in Dorne. You could argue that there's somebody in the Iron Islands, Euron, I guess. You don't have anybody in. You have the Reach, Dorne, and Vale is Sweet Robin, so that's not going to go against. Cersei is not going to get Sweet Robin support in the Vale. You have the North, so you do have somebody there. They're not going to go for Cersei when she doesn't help. And then you have the Westerlands, which I guess you could argue that by proxy maybe somebody's there, but technically nobody's sitting at Castle Rock. My meaning is that the lords, that the vassal lords, that they get the armies, they tax the people, that they suppress the 90% of the population to keep them down, to have a feudalistic landscape exist, are gone now. That's the first thing that goes. Once those lords lose their power, then when you have the capital, Cersei sitting there, she's too thin. She doesn't have enough support. Her only choice is to go outside, which she's done with the Golden Company. And we've seen this in real history where they resort to asking France for help or, whatever it may be. And it's like, well, then you end up being a puppet state. It is essentially the idea. So the idea of there's going to be a change in the political landscape, it has to come down to this. I mean, do you believe that we can end this series with just somebody sitting on that throne and being like, oh, we're keeping things just the way it is? Let me just ask you that first.
I think that, I think it's the logo. So I don't know how they're going to destroy the logo at the end of this. If they're going to use the throne like the One Ring, and they're going to destroy it like they had to destroy the One Ring in Lord of the Rings, if that's what he's going for, then yes. But that usually takes a lot to change a political landscape like that. Would takes a long time. You just don't snap your fingers and everyone just bows like that. So me personally, I think that the throne is definitely going to be there, and I think someone's going to be sitting at it at end, but it's just going to be a just person instead of the people that we see. But I don't think that they destroy the Iron Throne when it's all said and done. I know that they have the new picture that they forgot for this season, and it's basically the Iron Throne in Drogon's head, which does give you credence to say, hey, maybe at the end Drogon burns this thing down. That's the end of the Iron Throne and everything else. But me personally, I don't think
that's the end of the chair. It's not the end of the political structure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's promotional material as well.
It is. I think it's the logo. I don't know if they're going to get rid of the logo that bad. I think it's going to be there at the end. I think we'll see people sitting on it when it's all said and done. I think we're going to see I have my opinion who I think is going to be there and stuff like that, but I don't think that the throne is going to be dissolved and all of a sudden it's going to go back to different kingdoms and they're all going to govern each other. And I don't see them.
Oh yeah, they're not going to say we're now a constitutional monarchy, because they're like, what the hell is that? That's not. He addresses the geopolitical issues in a fairly reasonable way. That's what I'm saying, is he's kind of setting up for the circumstances to be like, we can start to make a change, is what I'm saying. I'm not making the bold claim of they're going to be like, oh, now we're socialists, or now we're this, now we're a democracy, blah blah blah. I'm just saying that we're the pieces are being set with the elimination of the lords, for this to somewhat make sense, because there's going to need to be a ruling class that isn't birthright. They're not there because of birthright. They're there because of merit. And I'll let you finish, but that's what I was going with Jon, and not disclosing his actual to the populace, his actual Targaryen status, because he's like the poster boy for like merit at this point. He's done, arguably, there's always the side of Jon's mistakes cost him for a little bit, and then he does kind of get risen up. But for the most part, I think they're trying to convey through him that he is a guy that does things without his self-interest. First, he puts what's best for the realm. And then he even goes outside the constraints of the organization, which he's in, the Night's Watch, to let the wildlings through. When you have like examples of the Kingsguard and so forth, like being honorable to their vows, right? Like being honorable in a dishonorable association, you know, like being a sane person in a crazy world. So Jon is able to like go and see like the bigger picture. So like that's a good ruler. And now people, even though he's a bastard, not a bastard like anybody, he's still a Stark bastard, but they're willing to follow him. So I think it kind of hurts him to say, oh, I'm actually the heir. If you look at it from, you know, our political system, because like you're saying, it's crazy to think they're going to go, oh, yeah, well, now we're this, because it's like, now we're what? I guess they could go with a republic because that's an Essos. Like you have some examples of what they could go to, but it's like I think that there might be some precedents for him actually like holding that back because it's not advantageous. Because you have people finally accepting somebody that doesn't fit the perfect mold for a leader because they'd say this guy's the best guy, not he's the guy with the right birth, he's the guy with the right name, you know, and so forth. So it's like, you know, it would be easy, like you said, because it's not going to be a quick change for people to just immediately say, oh, well, that's why that bastard was able to do all that good stuff. He was the rightful heir the whole time. It's like it's like the perfect, if you're trying to keep monarchy going, that's beautiful for you, right? The guy that's like the bastard that's running the North, like that's going against everything. It turns out he's actually, the succession goes to him, even over Dany. It's like, oh, beautiful. I'd put him on posters if I worked for that party.
It would seem that somehow his blood has to come into play and has to be a factor in this whole thing. I understand what you're saying, that he has done everything he's done not knowing who he was, and that's never been a factor in his life to lead him to do the things he's done. But if his blood does not come into play, then that eliminates the Aegon character, because
let me clarify really quick. I mean, it definitely has to come into play with the Night King for some reason. I think they made that obvious. I'm just saying that he might want to try to like keep it on the low for the political issues. I just want to clarify that because it'd be crazy for it not to come into play. It seems to be a huge deal.
I don't think it's going to come out like while they're about to fight the White Walkers, but in the end, it would have to, because as I said, that's the difference between him and Aegon, right? Yeah. Aegon has, if you look at the way that they claim Aegon has been raised and everything else, or Aegon, it's the same thing with Jon. He's been poor. He knows what it's like to go hungry. Everything that he's saying, Jon Snow is also. So the only way to differentiate them, to make them different, is the fact that Jon Snow truly has the blood and Aegon is a fake. So that's why I think that the blood is going to have to come into play at some point in all this. Now, we have seen that blood doesn't truly matter because Jon has no idea what his blood is, and he's still accomplishing everything that he's accomplishing. You know, but the fact that Rhaegar gave up his wife and everything else to have this baby with this Stark woman shows that there is something special in blood. And that's what George R. R. Martin has put out there, and that's just what it is. So I think that in the end, his blood has to at some point come into play for this story.
Yeah, I mean, it would be so silly for it not to. I mean, it would be just such a waste of just so much time. I mean, it is for some reason, him finding out himself is a catalyst for a major resolution. I don't know what that is, but it's been very, very claimed. It's like Jon needs to know this. It's like it is almost silly looking at it from the outside in, but like it's a story, and it is, you know, good. It's a good story about somebody that, you know, didn't think they were worth anything, or they were always lesser, and blah blah blah. But it's like George isn't conveying, you know, and this comes down to what I've been talking about with like narrative theory and all that. It's like it's always like, oh, what is George trying to convey? It's like, well, I don't personally know George, and you get a little bit risky with that. But you also have to look at, you know, there are clear messages that he's conveying. I don't think that he's trying to tell a story about you have to be born to the right people to be good, right? Like, so like, how do we take this Jon situation and fit it, you know what I mean, into the story? Like, because it's like, for some reason that's important, right? But the message of can you imagine any other situation in this story where it's like nobody else can solve a problem except for the noble person? That's the complete opposite of like everything that's happened. So it's like that's what makes this story so good, and also worrisome when it comes to sticking the landing, because it's like, ooh, what are we doing with this? Because I don't believe George would have pulled the Westworld with like just the I wanted the R plus L equals J like shock. You know what I mean? Like it has to mean something, but it's like if you attribute all of the worth, or if you make that the key to the resolution, like his actual lineage, like completely, like that goes against everything else you've been saying, right? You know, like you're not this is an allegory. You're not writing the Chronicles of Narnia and trying to like press your, I mean, nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, he's very vocal about, like, you know, we do have interviews with him where he speaks about his intentions, things he's went back on. You know, like that's what I talk about with character functionality, and that's what I want to get your vibe on. Like, I like Arya. I think she's a fun character, but I think that for the story to make sense, and for the story, when I say make sense, the messages I take from it, and it's subjective, but that, you know, a character like Arya is fun, but like it's not a story about killing your way through life, and murder is awesome. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
but
it's
I
just
think
not that. So like what I'm saying is Arya has to die, in my opinion. Like
whoa.
for that, like I don't want her to die. Like I'm like, oh, I hate Arya, but it's like if she lives and she has like a great ending, it's like, it's like, what was that for? Like the show maybe uh would choose to do that, but I even highly doubt that. Like when people are like, well, I want Sansa to die so much because they're just so fed up with her, it's like Sansa's the one that has to actually live, else that was pointless, because Sansa has been around the world at, you know, at this court, and then with, you know, in the show with Ramsay, but in the books, you know, playing the game in the Eyrie and so forth. Like she has been well traveled, she's been observing, she's seen how people play. All the Starks have left, and they've all experienced different things and taken different things from it. The question is, what skill sets are going to be advantageous for the future of the realm? So like just having Sansa die could happen, yes, but it's like, it's an odd decision at this point. Having Arya live and like get married, I guess, subverts the trope of she never wanted to be a princess, and she gets married to Gendry, and she's a princess, and that fits technically, and I'll let it slide. But I mean, are you in line with me with it somewhat? Again, like nobody's claiming to be right or wrong, but like there's a certain way I look at the story, and it's like I think certain people like serve purposes as far more than like, oh, what are they going to do with the Night King? Not everybody's going to be involved in that. Not everybody is the key to that resolution. Their functionality is different. It's like it's a human condition. You know what I mean? Like, so the story of Arya is somebody that really loves death, even from that trailer. Look at it. She's like, oh, I'm looking forward to this. And then we see her, you know, doing CrossFit, not looking like she's looking forward to it. So it's like, do you think Arya like is somebody that can make it out of the story and they can maintain like the themes that are overarching through, or is it just fun and she's a fun character and they're going to let it slide?
Sure, she has to make it. I think that her and Sansa both have to make it. I'll explain exactly the reason why. Number one, Arya, I believe, gets a bad rap. Number one, because there's a lot of sexist people in this world. If Arya was a boy and she was doing everything that she's been doing, everyone would celebrate her. But the fact that she's a girl, everyone says, oh, why is this girl going around becoming an assassin? Why is she killing all these people? But if she was a boy, if it was Bran, it was Rickon, and Rickon with his wild wolf personality went out there to the faceless men because all his family members got killed and everything else, everyone would be like, go Rickon, do your thing, boy, kill them. Right, but because she's a girl, people would be like, oh, why is this girl going around killing people like that? So I think she gets the bad rap because of that. As for Sansa Stark, when dealing with a show and dealing with everything else, and I'll take this reference from The Wire real quick, you can't just keep giving fans bowls of shit, all right? You can't have fans just eat shit after shit after shit and expect them to smile at the end of it. Eventually, you have to have these people come back around. Now, it seems that they regress with the Sansa character because she should have learned everything she needed to learn to G Ramsay. Everything that she was set up to learn, she should have known to how to game Ramsay. She should have known how to wrap Ramsay around her finger like Cersei and Littlefinger taught her. But instead, she regressed and talked shit about the guy and called him a bastard and said, you don't mean this, you don't mean this. So it seemed like she set herself up to get beat up. by opening her big mouth in that situation. But I give that on the writers more than the character of Sansa, because I don't see that going down the way they have her in the books, because the way she is in the books, and I do believe that she'll get raped in the books by Harry the heir, but I think Sweet Robin will kill him for that, and that's how she'll take over the veil when that all goes down. But I think it will go down like that, but I don't see her going through being that stupid as they played, and I got to give that on the writers, that they didn't follow through.
I've done a video, just full disclosure, doing like how you actually visually like will map out a story arc, and it just looks like a bunch of hills with her, because there's always the uptick at the end, like where they learn from their experiences. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just a bunch of hills after hills after hills, and like it's like, okay, pull the trigger already. I agree with you on that. I mean, I guess what you're getting at is it's either a lost cause at this point, or they're gonna finally write it. I believe they're gonna write it. I do believe Sansa has a role to play. I believe she's equipped. I don't believe. I see what you're saying with Arya, but I really don't. I won't 100% agree. Just for my personal opinion, that it's because she's a girl. I think that it's I mean, in the books it's even worse. Like somebody doesn't laugh at her joke. I mean, she's pretty sick when it comes down to it, and you're supposed to understand it for a while because the Starks got fucked, but at a certain point, somebody that is a dealer of death can't be like because Arya in the books especially doesn't just deal death to those that are deserving, like that we subjective deeming deserving, if that makes sense. So I mean, I think that I'm not saying that. I think there's some validity to what you're saying about, like, if it was a male there'd be less scrutiny, but I don't think we can absolve her completely.
I'm not absolving her for everything that she's done, but I am saying that when put in situations that she's put in, she really doesn't have a lot of choices. She's never really left in the choice, well, can I do this or can I not do it? Everything she basically has to do to get back where she's at right now. So that's the
phrase, all of them, everybody there.
Huh?
Everybody there.
I would say, and she spared the girls and stuff like that from the phrase. So I would say that's pretty much what happened to her family and her family's bannermen. So why wouldn't she be able to accomplish that? And she used a woman's weapon in poison to do it too. So that makes sense too for her doing that. So no, I 100% back. Arya's my favorite character, so I ain't gonna say nothing bad about Arya. Man, I can't.
See, we're opposite on this one, because I'm all about Sansa. And you're all about it, but that's what makes this good.
I like Sansa. I think Sansa when it's all said and done. There's no reason for her to get prepared the way she get prepared. Sansa is the young, more beautiful queen that will cast down all that Cersei holds deal. That's Sansa. That's not Daenerys. That's not Marjorie. That's Sansa. That's been Sansa, and that's who is going to be on the throne in the end. There's no reason to teach her everything that she's been taught just for her to die in the Battle of Winterfell. That doesn't make any sense for her to go through all the stuff she's gone through just for her to get killed in this Battle of Winterfell, get killed any other way. Only reason you train her to do all those things and to take everything is that in the end, she has to wind up on top. And that's the only way it works.
Yeah, because like if it was that, then they could have ended it after King's Landing, right? Like, because it just would have been a telltale story about somebody that thought being a princess, was going to be so great in this lofty lifestyle and the Starks way of thinking. But no, they chose to just double, triple, quadruple down on that shit. So I'm with you. And again, too, it's like a subversion of the trope, almost like, she did want to be a princess and a queen at the beginning, but now it's like, she's got to that stage where it's like, the people that are going to take on power, in my opinion, aren't going to want to be the people that have been like yearning for it the whole time. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I think that in the books, like, Arya has a few situations, especially, I can't remember what is the boy's name. She kills him for snoring or laughing. There's one particular instance I can't recall. There's a real foul thing that she does, but everybody does it. But
we're talking about Game of Thrones foul things that people. I mean, she's a young girl too. I can't justify everything that Arya Stark does in her life. There's no way anyone could justify anything that everybody does. Everyone makes mistakes.
But do we have empathy? Can we understand the reasoning? Because you proved it at the twins. You're right. I mean, that's what happened to her family. It's fucked up, but like, it's not sympathy. It's empathy. Like, you're like, I get it, because that happened. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, no, and that's what's great about it. It's like, it's great to think about it because what we're talking about it is something that is going to just be a conversation that's going to enlighten us and think about actions and think about the way in which we make our decisions. Though, of course, we're not going and killing whole houses of families. Or we wouldn't say it on air, but that's the point of the story, and that's the thing. Like, I love the, when you come to a situation like this where we see something differently, but it's like you approach it, and that's the point of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's story means something different to everybody. Like, you interpret it and you learn from it and you learn more about yourself through it, and that's what I love. Like, it's like, to say absolutely, like, this is what this character means. It's like, which leads me to a question I've been yearning to ask you. What do you think about people attributing things to prophecy when it seems to me that the story is all about, it's a warning to not do that, about, how thinking that everything has to adhere to a prophecy, and how you have adverse effect from that. And there's so many theories out there, and so many people so confidently and so elegantly saying that something's going to happen because of a prophecy. And it's like, I almost see them as a character in this show that's about to get stabbed. And disagree. I mean, definitely I want, the debate, but I mean, like, is it silly for me to think that way, that like, to think that there's going to be a Zora High out there for sure, like a definitive, prophecy will be fulfilled, and like, we'll have a for sure answer for any of that? Do you think there's any chance of that, anything less than ambiguity coming from prophecy?
I think that most of them, not all of them are right, but I think that certain ones will be fulfilled, but not just because of the prophecy, because people will fulfill it, and then it will seem like that was prophetic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that it's self-fulfilling prophecy more than anything. There, people put guideworks or guidelines down that something's supposed to happen, and then someone fulfills that and then becomes that role. You know what I mean? I think it's more like that when you're dealing with prophecy in the Song of Ice and Fire. It's not something that's set in stone that's going to happen, but basically it's like, if Jon Snow was to get killed in the Battle of Winterfell, he's coming back to life. It's not like Jon Snow is going to fall in Winterfell and then the White Walkers are going to go to King's Landing and someone else is going to defeat him. It's going to be Jon Snow. Now that's it. Now whether he dies this time, and I have I have a feeling, I think I know how it's going to go down with that. We'll talk about that later and stuff. But if he dies again or anything like that, again, he's going to get the kiss of life. He's going to come back. He's going to always keep coming back because he's a star of the show, and they're going to have him do what he has to do in the end. So is that really prophecy? Because no one has to bring him back. They bringing him back on purpose. They're going to keep bringing him back. It's like Davos. This is a guy who had no belief in any magic. He had no belief in anything whatsoever. But when Jon Snow was dead, and even in the show, he had no true connection to Jon Snow, but he wanted Jon Snow to get resurrected. He went right to Melisandre and said, hey, is there anything you could do? He didn't do that for anyone else, you know what I mean? But he did that for Jon Snow. So that's self-fulfilling, you know what I mean? And I think that's what would continually happen to a character like him, and will make it all come together.
Yeah, that I'm 100% with you. It's all about, like, they see that and they try to just fulfill it themselves. Sometimes it can end, just because it doesn't end in tragedy, like Shireen, doesn't mean that it's fulfilled. Yeah, like, I was just making, because I mean, hey, maybe I might eat my words, in like, prophecies get fulfilled like to the absolute. You know what I mean? Like, and they give, because when they raise these people, like, look at Beric. I think Beric is like the perfect allegory for like what prophecy means. He's been resurrected 6 times. Do you think Beric really has a function like in the end game? Meaning like he's the one that's gonna like save us from the long night. I won't inject myself and I won't victimize myself. But like, Beric is a clear example of like a character they've made pretty clear doesn't actually matter, but he's been resurrected more than anybody we know. So like, it just shows the randomness of it. Like, in the people that resurrect, when they resurrect, right, they just say the words because, like you said, they just want them to come back. And like, when Mel sees Jon and she's like, she's so thrilled, right? But then she asks what he saw, and he says nothing. So that shows you right there that she's looking for, like, she has somewhat of an understanding, or she thinks she does, of her process. So then when it actually does something that doesn't have some charlatan tricks in it, this resurrection, she's like, oh my God, I'm finally gonna get my meaning, right? And John says it's nothing, and her eyes just drop, because she don't know. She just wants it to be true. That don't make it true. Just because you got it's like I always do the poker analogy. You got 7-2 offsuit, you can put as much money in that pot as you want. That don't make your cards any better. You can want something as much as you want. That doesn't make, it true. They really wanted John to come back. For some reason he did. I think it's going to be left very ambiguous. Like, yeah, like, but I love what you're saying, because like he's gonna get resurrected probably if he dies, because he's asked specifically not to be, and she's like, no, I will. But yeah, you're right. Like, it could happen, and then we could see how they could adhere that, and how that could, end up culminating in an actual another, story 2,000 years down the line of Azor Ahai, or whatever it may be, whatever they want to attribute it to, because they're going to take these events and try to draw meaning, because they're looking for meaning in their beliefs. So I mean, like, Melisandre and Varys seem to be tied, obviously. What gets me with them in the series specifically is they both were pretty much benched for a whole season, right? Like, you didn't see a lot of them, and then they pop back up. That's really a red flag for me, for like, there's something they need to do that's important to the story overall. Like, because they, like Bran, like, you don't have him for a whole season, because they're like, well, you don't show magic shit, like how it works, because I've said this a million times, it becomes science. It's not magic. But like, you have people that are like off screen for so long, and then they come back. It's like, so we have Melisandre that, like, she knows somewhat what Varys was told, and what Varys saw in the flames is terrifying to him, but it's fascinating to her, is my interpretation. And I find that to be very interesting, because it's like, what can be terrifying to Varys, right? I mean, he thought nothing worse than Stannis getting King's Landing because of what he saw in those flames. But what she knows, because she says that she knows what he saw, it is like compelling to her. So it's like, what can that be? What can be so terrifying to Varys?
I
But
think that, listen, if you chop off my dick and make a kebab out of it, I'm gonna be scared of anything that comes out of that thing. I don't know what.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, okay, that's fair enough. That's fair game. But then you got to give me an answer, like, other than the dick. I mean, because that is, guys, that's completely true. And I mean, I don't know. I always thought if I got my dick chopped off, no big deal. No
You
big
can
deal.
have a dick kebab. If you have a dick kebab and it's burning there in front of you, anything that comes out that thing is good, especially if it's your own stuff. You're going to be scared of it. But I just think that if you're dealing with Derek, or you're dealing with Beric, I think
Who's Derek? Did Derek cut off a dick anywhere? Who is this Derek guy?
I think the only thing that he could be here for left is to bring somebody back to life. The only reason he could be there is to give the kiss of life to somebody else. That's the only purpose he serves to still being in this show. And that's it. Now, I think there's a good chance that in the books that this is Lady Stoneheart that may do this to fulfill Catelyn Stark's final thing for Jon Snow, that she brings him back to life one time herself and gives up what she has in her to mend her thing with Jon. And I think that since she's not there and they gave the role to Beric, that most likely this is his role. I could see Jon Snow falling in Battle of Winterfell, and I could see Beric bringing him back to life again, and then they are escaping Winterfell for him to fight another day. Because people just believe that he is this prophesized person, so they're going to keep bringing him back until he eventually wins. And they can say, I told you so. I told you he was the guy. I told you all along that this was his purpose. And I think that's what's gonna go down with Jon in the end.
But Melisandre, you don't believe that Varys, like she knows exactly what. Okay, there's no argument in my body, trust me, that experience is something that I don't think is advantageous. But let's just play with me, all right?
Well, hey,
and let's assume that let's assume that that's not the source of fear. What can please her so much and scare him so much. You know what I mean? Like what can be the huge conflict here? You know, like because I can't believe it's the event to be. I mean, because he takes care of the event. He gets that guy. Yeah, he's not happy about that, but still, it's the dark magic. You know
Well,
what I mean?
it was the words that was coming out the flames. He says that scared him, so he didn't understand the words because Melisandre says, not Melisandre, but the other lady says, "Do you want me to tell you what those words meant?" Right?
Mhm.
That's what she says to him, the priest, when she goes up. You want me to tell you what those words meant when they burn you? And it was the words that they were actual words coming out of these flames that scared him. That this shit's
That
talking right
spoke to
now.
him.
You know, that's really not what he seen, more than what he heard. I mean, if you're sitting by a fire, I'm sitting by a fire, whether my dick is burning it or not. If I'm sitting by a fire and all of a sudden a voice comes out of it, you know, if I hear Mr. T say, "I pity the fool," I'm like, "Hey, son, wait, what the fuck are you, Mr. T?"
Nah.
You know what I mean? You're not
Yeah.
lying. It's gonna be a problem for me. I'm gonna be scared about it. So that's what it is. I just think it's just the whole situation of everything that happened to him, hearing this voice that came out of there, that, you know, that obviously
That
made him think that, hey, there's something real about this situation that's going on, that they did this to me
which is
for.
pleasing to her, but
Mhm.
yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me right there. That's perfect right there because that's pleasing to her because that's all she wants is to understand this thing, right? Because that's like she's a fervent believer. So
Mhm.
she wants some sort of like certainty. And he is just got his junk cut off. You know, this is correct to factor in. This is a humanist approach at the literature. We will factor in his state of mind. And yeah, no, yeah, no,
I
damn.
remember I seen a show of Ancient Aliens a long time ago, and they had this thing during the war that the people there, they went to Africa, they're doing the war, and they were giving the Allies were giving food to these Africans out there and everything else, and they built landing strips out there, and they were giving them food and everything else, right? But these people never seen airplanes before. They never seen, and this is real, they've never seen airplanes, never seen anything. So it was all technology. Now, when the war was over and these people left the United States and everything else, the people in Africa, they built airplanes out of straw and put them on the landing strips and did circles around them and did sacrifices for them, hoping that their gods, they said that these were gods that were giving them food and they're going to come back. When these were just regular people fighting a war. But because they believed that these people were giving them gods, they made a whole religion around that. So
Yeah.
people will believe what they want to believe as long as it's in their favor, you know, and all as
Yeah.
long as you can get people to follow it too. And that's the way it is with Melisandre. It brings me to like some things a little bit crazy. Like when you deal like people that like with Cersei, and people say, "Oh, Cersei's pregnant, she stopped drinking." Like to me, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. They're not supposed to know what drinking does to a baby back then. I've seen people drinking in the 80s when they were pregnant. I've seen people smoking crack in the 90s when they were pregnant. So how the hell are these people in the Middle Ages going to know that goddamn drinking is going to hurt your baby? You know, they should know that stuff. You know, there's people doing heroin right now pregnant and stuff like that. So how do these people all the way back then know, oh, Cersei knows to stop drinking at this time because it's going to hurt the baby? They ain't
Yeah.
supposed to know that
The one
stuff.
that blew up a sept, pretty much
Yeah,
like the Vatican. It's
they ain't
like
caring
oh
about
yeah,
that.
yeah, like that angel. But no, yeah, I get it. Well, that's where you come into adhering our social constructs to something. That's why I always say this that fantasy is a beautiful vehicle for truth because that's why they create their own worlds. It's to try to avoid what you're talking about right there, those types of assumptions. You know what I mean? Like you take your story off world so people don't hold it. It can last longer on ours, meaning like they're not adhering it to a certain like because like the medicine is far more advanced than the warfare. There's no cannons, but there's like vaccination to a point, and like the modern medicine is pretty advanced. So like nothing, you can't really tie it down to one thing. Like if you just think just because there's a semblance of the War of the Roses there, and you want to say everything is in 1345, then that's going to be it's deductive. It's that Freudian approach of saying everybody just is in love with their mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't think that Cersei is pregnant, but it's not for those reasons. And to clarify about the and you did clarify it for me. For some reason, I was under the assumption that, and it was Kavara or whatever, she got fired. That said the meaning. I was mixing. Yeah, like when you look at it just from the standpoint, like you're saying, of she just knows words were said. You know what I mean? So that's good for her, not good for him. Yeah. So like that, yeah, absolutely. See, and for any of you guys that like get real bitter, I don't think anybody are in the comments that are like that, but about like theories and stuff like that. That's why you don't do that. Because like that's the fun of it. You talk about the show, and I'm like, why do you believe that, Teflon? And then he comes at me with it, and it's like, okay, yeah, damn, that that makes sense, and that makes me enjoy it more because that's what I don't get. Like, I couldn't understand that conflict there. It's like, how could it be so vastly different? How could their motivation be so off? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they both, in their own way, want to do good by society. They're not going about it in the greatest ways, but like, what could be so different? But it's a simple thing like that. It's like they heard words, not like exactly what was said. It was Kavara that said she knew what it was. She got fired for some tomfoolery. She had to do something bad because the fans loved her.
She looked just like the actress who played Lyanna Stark, and she was hot.
Yeah, she was in The Fall. That's a really good show. So when we're talking about function and stuff like that, what do you see for the Golden Company? What do you see for them as far as I'm gonna go ahead and make a bold claim, which I rarely do. I don't think we'll see them in combat.
No, really?
No, I think that Cersei will be the one that stops them from going into combat, and so they won't break the actual contract. But I think that Cersei will be the one that will, not, because Cersei is the one that has to send them. I mean, they don't break the contract if Cersei doesn't send them into battle. I don't see that. I see that, we have our conflict resolution through external means, meaning battle with the White Walkers. So now we're dealing with the other monster, the internal monster, the one of their own. And I don't see it going down like that. You know what I mean? I just don't. I see them as being a formidable force as there, and somebody choosing to. I'm not saying she's going to do it for lofty or noble reasons. I'm just making the prediction that she will not send them into battle. And, maybe it's for Jamie, maybe it's not. Maybe it's because she just, in all reality, ain't got no damn power. Trust me, she is stretched thin. She got the crown lands, and she ain't even got she blew up the Sept. I find it hard to believe she could find two people to walk to the bank with her at this point. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I don't see them going into battle. I don't see it.
I would think they would have to go into battle. I think that, especially when you're dealing with the books situation, if you look at the Golden Company in the books, they have taken over Storm's End. They're post up in Storm's End, so they've already been through a battle that they won and captured Storm's End with guile, as John Connington has said in the books. So I think they have to. I think that when you have a company that says our word is as good as gold, and then in the books you see them say that some contracts are worth more than gold, I think that sets up them to flip on Cersei for Jon Snow as soon as they find out who he truly is. And I think that, I think it has to set up that way, and I don't see it playing out any other way. I think they may in the beginning side with her, do what they have to do, but in the end, maybe when they see the White Walkers or they see the actual threat and they see what's going on somehow, that they flip sides with it. It's just like, to me, like the wall. You don't have a big wall up there that's never been broken and say it's never been, that's not going to get breached. Of course it's going to get breached. When you hear all these castles, Storm's End has never fell. That means it's going to fall. King's Landing has never been taken. That means it's going to get took. So when you have these three, I think it's the same exact situation that's going to go down. I think they have to fight. It makes no sense to bring these people in and pay all these actors just to stand around to be fluff. You know what I mean? I don't think they need the fluffer in this particular time, right? I don't think they need the fluffer. I think they're hard enough. I think they're ready to go. So I don't see them how they're going to bring in the Golden Company just to be a fluffer. I think they got to put them right in the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
people may not know what a fluffer is.
Oh, I know. Yeah. You want me to, yeah, it's when a man is having a hard time having a hard time on a certain type of video set. And there's people that are, you got to, just like you're a PA when you're doing production work. I've done production assistant work. You in the porn business, you're a fluffer in some cases, and it takes it's a lot of lip service. But yeah,
it's a hell of a job.
Well, let me say, I stand by. They don't go into combat, whether or not it's because of Cersei. is up for grabs, but I see them as being like, you know, the weapon of mass destruction, like to a point that they don't use. Like I that's exaggerated, a little hyperbole there, but you know, like this, like somebody is going to make a decision, you know, because this you were going to have our conflict because the whole worry is, oh, they can't have a battle to win everything. It's like, we're going to get our battle. They said it's the longest battle that's ever been filmed, literally. Like that's including Gettysburg. Ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, our gods and generals. Okay, like so it's still okay. Yeah, I don't recommend it, but yeah, it's a lot of battles. So like to have it with the Golden Company, I see that as like more like somebody's gonna reframe or somebody's gonna do what you said, like go to John for whichever reason, whether it goes, you know, I don't see them invoking any Blackfire because there's none of that in the show, you know. But I see it as you know, what would Cersei value over everything? Her children. So if she's pregnant and if there's a complication, how does that affect her? Would be really, because that's the only thing that like grounds her, right? In the show, especially, is her love for her children.
I would think it'd be better if she faked it. If she used that, knowing that Tyrion cared about her kids, and she put her hand there, faking it on purpose to get Tyrion to side with her and flip on Daenerys, that would be the better play for me in the show if they pulled that off instead of her actually being pregnant and then losing the baby. Her outsmarting would be better and playing on his emotions.
Yeah, using your one bit, because there's foreshadowing for that, because he says, you know, you have your like what a few redeeming qualities, your cheekbones and your love for your kids. He says that in the show. So yeah, you know, playing on like his one thing that he's like given her, like the one moment of kindness they've shared, you know, in this terrible relationship, to utilize that because she did do something. So I just think it's odd, you know, like to see them in combat. It's like, how does that go? Is like, you know, like what I struggle with, like meaning like, you know, like we already are dealing the whole long night situation has been dealt with by episode 3. You know, now we're moving on to the monster, the one, like, you know, you're the one human inside with other humans, and you know, like, they're not too happy with you, you know what I mean?
It seems that everything that Bran the Builder supposedly built is falling, right? You had the wall, he's supposed to build that fell. He had Winterfell, it seems like that's gonna fall. So I think the last stronghold he has is Storm's End. So I think that possibly the last thing could come in Storm's End, and that would be the one that actually holds for this guy, because everything else this guy's built ain't did shit. But I would think that one thing that he's credited to build, though we know he doesn't really build everything's impossible, is gonna have to hold.
Oh, he's just real efficient. He was like, I did the high tower in one day, and then this
everything. I mean, Jesus Christ, Bran the Builder, he's all over the place.
Well, it's a general contracting business, you know. It's Bran the general contractor builder.
He's like, he must be Amish the way he's building these things so fast. I don't know.
Yeah, I see them with their generators. I know them. But I'm like, you're fucking up. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I see them as yeah, I mean, there's you know, I'd say 50-50. And I've been known to be wrong on that, but I see the major external conflict coming before that. So I think like it would become like they only have 6 episodes, so it's like, that's just my opinion, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna have to go back to like the other aspects that we love so much, like the internal, you know. So like for them to even fight like a little bit, like it's just like, I just can't see like how that works out, because like what, like they either fight against, like, because if they fight against Cersei, like if they just don't fight with Cersei, they don't need to fight. You get what I'm saying? Like, so like so like if they fight John and the people that have survived, because we're gonna go ahead, like you said, probably assume that the White Walkers don't win that and everybody's dead. So like, you know, like what is the scenario in which they fight the survivors? Like, it's just odd to me, you know. It's either they break it or they don't.
Well, if they lose all their men in Winterfell, they're gonna need some type of army to stop the Night's King, and it could be the Golden Company, the exiled Targaryens that help save the day in the end.
So they play a part in that the conflict, with the White Walkers is
Oh,
what
of
you're.
course.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the White Walkers aren't going to get stopped at Winter. They're not going to come attack Winterfell in episode 3, and that's it. It can't go down. That would be so whack that if they set this whole thing up, that this thing, in all honesty, when I look at the White Walkers and their army, they don't seem like a big threat to me, in all honesty. Not at all. Because in the battle, if you don't have any artillery, you're fucked. All right. And I don't see anyone just being any type of army that's just basically physical with swords coming right at you. When you have arrows that come over the top, it doesn't matter how
They are
many
lining out outside the walls of Winterfell in the trailer, which seems to be quite silly to me. But I get what you're saying. Like,
if you funnel any army through, especially like the Bloody Gate is the best place to get them, and you get them in there with a 300 situation. It doesn't matter how many armies how much you have. They're not shooting arrows. These White Walkers. They don't have any projectiles. I mean, and you have an army with projectiles. It doesn't matter who they should have no chance to beat these people. You just shoot arrows over the top and just keep taking them out and keep taking them out, because we haven't seen these guys raise the dead instantly. It's not like these people are dropping and jumping right back to life. The Night's King, when he
Hardhome is fairly quick. It's fairly quick at Hardhome.
He raised his arms and then they started shaking and twitching and then they stood up. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they was laying there for a while. These people had enough time to escape. It wasn't like they dropped and then came right back to life. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, what you're saying is like you can't, like, if they die, it's not like they're just all replenishable right away. But what I see is the mothership aspect is that and they plainly laid this out, that you kill the creator, you kill them all, type of deal. You shoot down the mothership, all the bots on whatever Star Wars universe it is stops working. I have to believe that's the way it's going to go down. I mean, I'm in complete agreement with you, but I also think that we don't see a definitive winner in a militaristic way. Like I still have to think that there's going to be another deal made, and that deal is going to be hard, some hard choices, some hard living. So I get what you're saying, like, but it's like, because it is crazy too to watch that trailer, but they didn't even want to make that trailer, and trailers are promotional material that was made in-house, but it's always important. I said this in stream with AU last night, that there's been many occasions when people have interpreted trailer houses, art house boutiques that made trailers that had no director, no screen, anybody that's in charge of the story on that trailer, and they're like, this is what this means. This is what this means. I'm like, you are literally interpreting a commercial. But yeah, this one was made in-house. And sometimes they send directors over it, whatnot. But it was weird, right? Because you see when they finally, because Game of Thrones, of course, perfect for the long night battle because everything's so dark. That's a big complaint of mine. I can't see shit when you see the Euron naval battle. It's like I have no clue what's happening. You know what I mean? But yeah, I always immediately mess with contrast when I'm in my editor, when I'm looking at anything, even if I'm going to publish it or not. I'm just like, I just need to see what's happening. But it is odd that we see them, but they do have obsidian on, like, for fortifications on the walls as well. We have to think there's some stratagem there. But do you think that it will come to full blows? Like, obviously it's going to, or meaning, like, do you think that one side will like subdue, meaning like they would beat physically, or one side will like get to a point where they can negotiate for whatever? I mean, they made a deal once. I can't see why they wouldn't want to be making it again. Like I said, there is a lot of examples of them not destructing everything.
I don't think the White Walkers made a deal. I think it was a troll in the forest. So I don't think the White Walkers are going to make a deal. Now, dealing with war, usually, only thing that war is the means to get to a political end. That's the only reason why you fight wars with people to try to get to a political end. You don't never fight wars to kill everyone and wipe them out. That's never the price of war. No one goes to war to wipe out the entire race.
That's only genocide.
Huh?
That's genocide, not war.
Yeah, it's not war. So when people fight wars, war is basically to get to a political end. But the way this actor is saying, the way he has it set up is that the Night's King is just out for revenge. He's not looking for this political end or anything else like that. He's just trying to see the world burn. So it's very contradictory in the show from the book. So it's hard to see it, how they're going to play it in the show. I think that most likely in the show it's just going to be a destruction of the White Walkers, and they're going to die. In the end, the White Walkers won't exist anymore. And then there'll be no magic. There'll be no White Walkers. There'll be no direwolves. There'll be no dragons. And then the realm will just be ruled by men, and that'll be it.
got good because you know how I feel about magic and storytelling. But yeah, I don't remember his name is something with an H, but that throws a wrench in so much of my thinking on this outcome. Like if I was doing that interview, I'd be like, can you repeat that? Like, all
Wait a
right.
second. Let
We
me
have
say,
a small YouTube channel. This is really fucking me. I don't like what you're saying. It doesn't jive whatsoever. And it's like, what'd you tell him? It's like, I told him some crazy. Like, I can't imagine he's lying. Like, I mean, I guess you can, but it's not the best. Like, this is the one interview the guy gives, and he just straight up lies. Like that. I mean, it's not even like ambiguous. You know what I mean? Like, he went out of his way to say that he's looking for one person. He's like Liam Neeson there. You know, like looking for one person. It's a crazy premise. It really throws a wrench in it for me. But I get what you're saying, that you know it's not the same situation, because it's like, but that's also when you say there's nobody to make the deal with. It's like, then again, like I agree, because there's nobody there that's relevant to that original deal. So like, who's he getting revenge against too?
I
Like
mean,
it's like so crazy to.
can I answer this question real quick? There's a thing in the chat from Jeff. He said, "I'm saying this because AU Pack you agree with you, so that's why I'm saying it." Jeff said, "Tell that to Hitler," and AU Pack Mule says exactly, Jeff. Now we're dealing with Hitler. I'm not saying the Hitler aficionado, and I know everything about these wars, but Hitler did not go to war with the Jewish race. He exterminated the Jewish race. It's a different situation here. He tried to kill the Jew. He wasn't at war with the Jewish race. He just tried to exterminate the Jewish race. But if you look at the wars that Hitler did fight, when he did take over, it was a political end after he conquered them all. So that's what he was going for in the end. When dealing with the Jewish situation, he just wanted to exterminate every Jewish person.
Vercingetorix. Let me give them an example that they should have used. Vercingetorix with Caesar. That's what they should have went for, because I'm in agreement with Tony. What Tony was saying is that war isn't always just about killing all of them. It's about having them, like what I was saying to him was, hey, do you think that they're just going to get to a point so they can make a deal? Tony was essentially saying, well, that's what war is, because in most cases, Tony's correct in what he's saying. That's what war is. It's not like, no, we're going to keep killing each and every one of you. We don't care about Versailles. You know what I mean? Yes, Hitler, nobody thinks he's a good guy except for, you know, if you're here and you think he's a good guy, please get the fuck out. But Vercingetorix in Caesar, maybe that's an example you'd want to use if you want to play devil's advocate with that argument. But what we were conveying was that it's not, the goal of war isn't to eliminate, in most cases, an entire population of people. It's to bring them to heal. You know, so yeah, I mean, you know, you don't want to, Vercingetorix. So is that what if I was going to make that argument, that's what I would have used, guys, just so you know.
Exactly.
Far better argument.
No doubt about it. And that's what he was going for. That whether he wanted world domination, it could be true, but he didn't want to kill the world. He wanted to have something to rule over. And he didn't want to do. It's like the people who say, "Oh, Varys is a mermaid. He wants to drown the whole world. Why? So he could just sit there by himself? It doesn't make any
king
sense.
of the ashes or king of the
He's gonna jerk off by himself in the water, and that's it. And everyone else is dead. No, you want to rule. You have to have people to rule. That's the whole point of ruling. If you don't have anyone to rule, you're not a ruler. So it doesn't make any sense to kill everyone. You're just trying to get them to submit to your will. And that's what happens when you're at war, and that's what the whole war is about. You
want territory. You want to submit to your will, meaning you want something. You're looking to get resources, territory. You're looking to rebel against something that you see as unfair, unjust. You want to. I mean, it's just a lot of times. Yeah, I mean, again, war is not great, but yeah, I mean, devil's advocate again. Vercingetorix would have been such a better argument for that, though. I'm telling you. I love it. But because Caesar was literally trying to take Gaul, and he did just end up going overboard. But I completely agree. We agree that obviously we're not saying that there's never a war where like everybody got freaking slaughtered in and went overboard. We don't think that everybody that, you know, is commanding a freaking full-on war is like gonna hold restraint, but usually you're trying to, you know, achieve something, you know, or at least you go into it trying to achieve something. Then you're there 15 years later and you're like, I guess we're cops here now. I don't know. But yeah, and we're not a political channel, unless that's gonna get me more subs. I'll do that shit. I'll do that. You know, I mean, it's easy. It's easy. Did you see what Trump did? It wasn't good. blah 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 blah. It wasn't good. I don't know. It's 24 hours, guys. Yeah, it's clearly not good. But yeah, it's and that's what it comes down to. Like, it's really interesting because I was talking to AU about this yesterday on the stream. I don't want to be like redundant, but like, the approach I take to it is like always looking at the author and then looking at the text, then looking at the adaptation. You know what I mean? So I really take this into consideration how George feels about war. George feels there's just war. So like, where's his just war? Because I mean, I've said it myself. I'm like, oh, he's anti-war. No, he's not. He actually went to lengths and almost didn't get his conscientious objection because of it. This is his interview. He says this. I don't know if he maybe did say he was a pacifist. The argument is like, if you say you're a pacifist, they're more willing to concede and be like, all right, blah, 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 go do some office work. But if you say the war that they're asking you to fight isn't just, is a big smack in America's face. And they're like, well, would you fight the Nazis? Because that's the question they ask. And, he said, yes, I would. I thought that war I would fight it, so that's, but then it's like, is the author his work, and is the work an embodiment of the author? So you get into it, but I mean, it has to play in. I mean, come on, Tony, are you going to write a book like it, and it's going to like totally disregard your personal experiences? Like especially when it comes to something as personal as that, like you know what I mean? Like it's just like, there's always a part of that author in there, like whether it's consciously or subconsciously. It's just like, when you don't want to like just diagnose them and be like a pseudo psychologist or whatever. I don't know. It's YouTube, so everybody can be whatever they want, evidently. But so I guess let's get away from genocide and all that, because we all agree genocide happened. Let's make that clear. Justin Thomas Show and Top Shelf Fandom and the Tony Teflon here, not for genocide. We acknowledge it. We're not Holocaust deniers or anything like that. Just let's make that clear. We don't need any sound bites.
I grew up.
Unless Tony, did you have something to say? Did you have a different?
I grew up in Queens, New York, Kew Garden neighborhood. I've been to more bar mitzvahs than birthday parties. I have a million Jewish friends. I was a Jehovah's Witness growing up, so I wasn't allowed to go to birthday parties. So I went to all my Jewish friends' bar mitzvahs. So I have nothing but love for the Jewish people. I respect them as a race of people. I know everything they've been through. I've seen people with Holocaust stamps on them. So I know what they've been through for real. So I got nothing but love for them.
Yeah, I'll just say I don't like owls.
I dated many Japs when I was younger. So,
hey, congratulations, though. Yeah, my only racism is about owls, the animal. I don't trust them with those eyes and all that. They don't fully digest their food. They're just a piece of shit. I don't trust them.
Turn your head all the way around. It's little.
It's crazy. No, yeah. So if you can get behind owls, you can get out. We don't be owling around here. So moving on to more serious topics, not that the owl problem isn't an actual issue. When you look at this season, Tony, where are you at for hedging? Because you're a reasonable person. Where are you at for hedging expectations?
I really wish it's going to be the greatest season that we ever seen. I really do. I think it sets up to be, for the fact that we have the greatest battle director that we've seen on TV history, Miguel Zapata, doing 2 episodes. So we know at least 2 of them are going to be great. So boom, right off the bat, we got 2 great episodes. I am not worried about his episodes whatsoever. It really comes down to, in all honesty, can Dan and Dave stick the landing on their last episode? They chose to take it themselves and direct it themselves. So it really comes down to that last episode, the longest one of the season. Can they stick this landing without George R. R. Martin's 100% full input on it? That's what it comes down to. If they stick the landing, it's great, but it's very hard. The Sopranos, a lot of people say they didn't stick the landing. Some people will say they did. I thought they did. A lot of people will say they didn't. Lost, they didn't stick the landing. Lost was terrible, right?
Yeah, technically did not. And my podcasting collab, Axel loves it, and he is a great guy. But no, yeah, Lost, they failed to establish proper antagonists. They clearly were all in that writer's room saying, well, we got ourselves into a mess, didn't we? All right. So, yeah.
MASH stuck the landing. MASH.
Yes. Oh, you like MASH, dude? I had DVDs when I was in high school. I used to partake in the weed, and I'd watch MASH. That was my thing. Yeah, it was always very dramatic, and then they'd have their chuckles, or they'd have their chuckles for the whole episode, and then it got real sad and serious at the end. But no, it was a great show. yeah, it's hard to do, but I always say, like, George hasn't finished the books, so I don't hold them to any lofty standards as when it comes to that, because George needs to conclude this story himself. I think George is one of the best writers of this generation. There's no doubt. But Dan and Dave, arguably, with their resumes put together, probably didn't deserve to get this job, and they've done a fantastic job with the adaptation until you get to the split of with the feast and dance. So, I've been really meticulously going through like the actual like script, the adaptation process, and they've done a good job. Like, yeah, season 5 starts to fall apart, but that's because you got POVs that are completely separated from novels. Like, I'm not saying they're the best writers in the world. Beyond the Wall is an atrocity, but it's like, yeah, I hope they can stick this landing, but it's so hard because I agree with you with Sopranos. It's like, it's ambiguous, but I think that's sometimes Deadwood ambiguous, not really ambiguous, but like sometimes that lack of like trying to like have some big catalyst and then some big conflict and then some big resolution all at the very end to try to like clean it all up and give people something to feel like they're fulfilled by is not the best way to go. Sometimes, a lot of these aspects of these stories, especially with A Song of Ice and Fire, is ambiguous. The magic is good because it's ambiguous. The people that are the major components of it, the fervent believers in these religions and all this, they all don't understand it completely. You know what I mean? But that's because that's true to from my experience, that's true in my own life. You know what I mean? Like you believe in some things, but you're not completely like, it's like you can say all you want, you got a full grasp on it, but I mean, it speaks true is what I'm saying. And, giving certainty, absolute certainty on every aspect is not the way to go. So some people are going to be very upset with ambiguous endings, but I think that one thing they need to stick is why the White Walkers are doing what they're doing if they are looking for revenge on somebody. Like, that can't be ambiguous anymore. Like, because now you put it to a point where it's like, okay, now you're going after a single person. Now I've got questions. Like, before I was like, all right, it's not great, but you obviously weren't volunteering to become a monster and now you're just living with it. But now you've got like a bone to pick. So like, I need a reason, you know what I mean? Like, we need a reason for this ticking time bomb that we've had since the first second of the story in both the source material in this the television series. So there's certain things they need to tell us, but like, don't tell me that John's the prince that was promised. That'll piss me off. Like, that'll take away from the story. Don't tell me like this, like there's like, people don't like The Sopranos, but like, I think that a lot of people would be surprised like how much they wouldn't like if they saw him get shot. You know what I mean?
They would hate it. If you seen Tony Soprano in that last scene get wet up and Carmelo and them stand there and have to watch his body die and everything else, no one would want that ending. Everyone would hate that ending. Only thing people would want to see is he's about to get shot and somehow he pulls a gun from under the table and shoots and kills them all. Then that's unrealistic in that situation. And we've seen him get shot, laid up in the hospital that season. He was almost dead with Carmella. So they're not gonna.
He's a glutton as fuck. I mean, like, I like him, but I mean, like, he's not the quickest gun in the West.
I thought the ending was good because you had to think about it, and people just don't like to think. I think people just want it for them, and then they don't want to have to. But you have to think about it. I mean, it's pretty obvious the man got killed. Just look at everything that he said and look at the way it went down. You could see that he's dead. It's just what it is, and that's what it is. It's just black. It's 1 second you see, the next second it's black. That's what death is. It's just that quick, and it's over, and you don't know that.
And hopefully that's what it is.
Yeah.
No, but I agree. Yeah, I mean, and when you're talking about the human condition, and in which George is so adamant about, very clearly stating that that's what he is exploring. Nothing's more interesting or compelling than the struggle within oneself. So when you're a student of Faulkner, you don't have absolutes. I think that it's not, again, like, it's not like shaming, and it's not saying like, oh, you're looking at this wrong, like, but it's like, it's just human nature to want like some finality, some closure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we think things have like a reason for everything we do, like, oh, this is gonna end up like but sometimes maybe you were in school to, you know, become a doctor and you didn't wake up one day, or, you know, I mean, bad, dark analogy there. But the point is like, you know, when they're telling a story that you love so much because it touches home and it's grounded, like high fantasy that's grounded, again, it's a good vehicle for truth, because you can still, I mean, you can have freaking just crazy cartoon monsters that compel a story about the human condition. It doesn't matter. It's the best vehicle because a lot of people don't go and read freaking academic essays. You know what I mean? They don't go to the lecture circuit to hear about the perils of war. You know, like it's better conveyed through something that's entertaining. We've conveyed everything that we feel that is important through story. A better understanding of story is a better understanding of yourself. So the yearning for vanilla, for that closure is natural. The ability to say, I enjoyed this series without complete closure may not come right away. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's only natural, but it's like, what did this story like? What does this story already mean for us? Like, we're both grown men here. Like, we're not talking about freaking like Goosebumps. You know what I mean? We're talking about something that has meant something to us, and it might mean something different to you in some ways than me and everybody in this chat. But it's like it's fun. It's awesome. It's got cool shit. Like Arya is a cool character. This cool shit that's stupid sometimes, but it's cool. But like there's also deep, you know, emotional connections that are grounded, that hit you, that hit home, you know, on many different levels that make you explore your own life. So it's like the lack of that finality, that closure is something that's hard to take at first, but that's just the human condition, I guess. You know, like I think that when you try to put a too much of a end cap, you try to seal up so much that should be left ambiguous, you know, you run risk. But I think it's about setting expectations. True Detective runs into this a little bit, and like I did a story theory for this, which, you know, dramatic theories, they go around and they do play into those theories, but and that's great to do because it leads you down roads, even if it doesn't go anywhere, that have meaningful conversations. I met wonderful people. I'm talking to you right now. We never would have met if it wouldn't have been for a Song of Ice and Fire. We both boxed. We get to talk about that now. You know what I mean? Like you make these connections, but like they might not be like connections like that. Like maybe we started talking over a theory that ended up being bullshit and not work, but it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like so like you have to hedge your expectations. Like so like I always like wonder like what can I handle being ambiguous realistically, and pretty much everything other than now the Night King being so dead set, if that actually is the truth, on killing somebody. And also I'm gonna probably want to see a somewhat of a meaningful attempt to show like how people have learned from these events, because you know, I know people in real life don't learn. Trust me, I don't learn a lot. But like this story, you know, like that's the benefit of fiction, is you can kind of speed things up and show us evolution. So like I'd like to see, you know, like Sam walking with some maesters, making them write what really happened. I'd like to see you know, people doing things like I don't want to be like, now we got a constitutional, you know, like monarchy. Like I said, I don't want to see parliament right away. They can jump right to Brexit if they want. Like we act like we got it nailed. But you know what I mean? Like it's like, what can you handle, Tony? Like being left open-ended, and like what do you absolutely think? I mean, because there's no doubt that they need to seal something up.
I think they'll lock up the Night's King story, but I think the White Walker story they'll save for the prequel. So I think you'll get half of it, but not the whole thing with that. I think they'll lock that up. And I think they should close the book on everything. There's no reason for anything to be open-ended after the long night. It should really be just about wrapped up. Then you should be able to see how it's going to play out at the immediately after Westeros, because I don't think it ends with the White Walker battle. I think it ends after, you know, whatever's going down in King's Landing right there. And then you're going to have whatever you think you're going to have. But I think, you know, you're going to see someone on the Iron Throne. You're going to see how people's lives are going, what you think their life is going to go off into before it's all said and done. You know, I think you're gonna see Nymeria. You're gonna see Arya doing the Nymeria boat ride. In the end, she's gonna be off on the boat. I think you'll see it end like that. And whoever's gonna be sitting on the Iron Throne, you'll see them sitting there. If they're one person's pregnant at the time, you'll see them being pregnant. I think it ends like that when it's all said and done.
What's your main takeaway? Like, I mean, I know it's a hard question to ask, but like what do you think that, like, if you had to say, if you were gonna go and speak and lecture some like kids that were like, studying story structure, you were gonna say like, look at A Son of Ice and Fire, like, and just, it's not allegory. They don't write allegory. They say that all the time, but there is message in it. What would you say is a good takeaway from this story?
I would just think that what I guess what he's trying to say in this story is that, you know, in the end, blood doesn't matter. It's just the desire of the person that gets you to where you want to go. I would think that would be his biggest thing, that you don't have to, you could be a bastard, you don't have to be a highborn person to do these special things and everything else. You could be that bastard and you're still capable of doing these things. That doesn't matter about your birthright or your birthright doesn't make you who you are. You make yourself who you are despite your birthright. I think that would be the overall message of the story.
Yeah, yeah. That's a solid, yeah. That, like I said, there's it, and again, like anybody that's like, no, that's not the message. That's the wrong way to approach it. Because, like I said, it's like everybody, you take your own meaning from story. Like, I mean, I think that there's no doubt that that's one of them, and that's something that's useful. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely aspects of this story that I like with belief systems that have intrigued me. Showing, I think the prophecy, the way they handle prophecy and showing the fallacy in that fervent blind belief. They show the dangers of that. It doesn't make me shun any spiritual belief system one way or the other, but it makes me think about it, and I like that. And I also like that I can see something that is fun to watch, and also something that whether you know it or not, subconsciously you're walking away thinking something different. And I had the advantage of watching this when I was still DJing, and I had the screenwriting experience before that, but it was definitely on the back burner. And I remember watching this first season, and I was like, I hope these Starks kick the shit out of the Lannister. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't start reading the books till season 3. You know what I mean? Like, and then I started going back and doing what I love doing. I stopped being a club DJ, even though it was fun, and started, going back to my original passion, which was, writing, acting, and analyzing stories. So, like, it's such a compelling story, but like, I like that I had that like casual viewer experience for the first season because it's effective, Like, I really didn't think much of it. I knew there's like, I didn't even, I mean, of course I knew there's the books, but I wasn't even gonna, I was like, I didn't care. I was like, I'm not gonna go look into that. Like, I mean, I, of course, was living as a club DJ. You definitely live a hectic lifestyle, but I like that. I like looking at it like that because it gives me insight to like how people like view it. Because not everybody's going to go and have a 4-hour live stream about it. They just need to, watch it, have fun. And it's like, I wonder, like, what did they take away from this? You know what I mean? Like, what does it do for them? That's interesting to me. I mean, it's so impactful. It's so impactful on the future of creators as well. I mean, just as far as the genre and as far as storytelling goes. And we see this in a time, and I think people get real like shocked by the success of this, but don't you think it makes perfect sense since we're fans of The Soprano, Deadwood? We like a lot of the same stuff. This is just fantasy I mean, I'm not at all like diminishing the value of it, but it hit at the perfect time, right? We have all these anti-heroes. We have all these, it's the emergence of the golden age of television where you have all these stories that, that are not at all trying to act like it's a rainbow ending. You have Breaking Bad, you have The Shield, you have these great shows that are showing people that you can empathize with that are doing things that are unjust. And then you have a fantasy show that comes along, and what guy doesn't like a good sword fight? I started taking him a lesson, so I bought a sword. I was like, screw it, let's go buy a sword. Complete nerd, but you know what I mean? Like this isn't surprising that it's such a success mainstream now because it's perfect, right? It fits everything that everybody loves about television. After I really give The Shield a lot more credit than I feel others do, or I feel it doesn't get enough credit. But you know what I mean? Like everybody usually will jump to The Sopranos, but it's like this came at an age where we're dealing with stories that is. I think I talked about this the first time we streamed. It's like when they say bittersweet ending, that's a nice little like catchphrase. But give me one fucking series in the last 10 years that was not like a soap opera that had anything other than a bittersweet ending.
Yeah, everything is bittersweet. Almost every ending that you see is a bittersweet ending. That's just the way it is, and that's the way it goes. So them saying, "Oh, this ending is going to be bittersweet," I mean, it's like I said, it's Sopranos ending, that's bittersweet. The Wire ending, that's bittersweet. Any ending that you see is bittersweet. MASH's ending was bittersweet. That's what you're trying to evoke, that emotion of happiness and sadness, or a happy cry. You know, that's what you're going for when you end all these shows. And I think that's what we're going to get with this, just like every other show. We'll get the same thing here. It'll be bittersweet. There are going to be some people that are going to be gone, but there's some people but it's going to carry on, and life's going to carry on, and that's your sweetness, and that's what it's going to be.
It's not going to be I'm walking on sunshine. Oh, yeah, they're not.
You're not going to see Arya and Sansa jumping rope and going through tiptoeing through the tulips or nothing like that. But, you know, you're going to see them in a better spot than they were. You know, you're going to see that that their life looks like it's on the upswing. Now, whether it stays like that, we'll never know, but it's going to look like it's going to be on the upswing at that particular time. Arya could get in that boat and say, I'm going to see what's west of Westeros, and it ends, but she can get murdered as soon as the camera goes off. You know,
That's my wish.
We'll never know that.
That's what it could be. That's the beauty of that ambiguity. But yeah, you know, I mean, it's like all I want is for what they show to make sense. You know, like okay, I get this is happening. You're showing Arya doing this. That's understandable. That makes sense. You know, not like, oh, and then now everything's fine. You know, like so I think, I mean, it's really just most simplistic marketing. That there's probably like a first year college marketing intern in there, and he's like, I'd say the ending's bittersweet, and like it's gold. Like everybody, like they really go nuts about that little catchphrase. It's amazing to me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what does that mean? I'm like, it means like it's just not going to be like the end of Full House. I don't know what else to freaking tell you. Even that's a little bittersweet.
Depends if Aunt Becky's trying to get you in college or not.
That's what I'm saying. Even Full House, yeah, you can't even say it. It's like, what story can you not say? It's like, I think that like one of the worst examples of people like just totally missing sticking that landing is Dexter. Because they try to do like the ambiguous with also like a conclusion, meaning like they gave you a conclusion and he definitely should have been dead, and then they show him on some lumberjack island in Canada or something. It's like, what the hell did I just like? It's like, okay, we want to like realistically that show should have ended with him on a death, like getting lethal injection in Florida, in my opinion, but I won't go there. But you know what I mean, there's certain like times where like, you know, they try to play both sides of the fence, but I think that the better your show is, the harder it is to finish, of course, because they're like, everybody's talking about it. Some people just watch TV shows and they're like, oh, that was fun. Nobody's like, you know, think I like Blue Bloods. I think it's a decent show. I'm not gonna like analyze it. You could, and there is a message there, I'm sure, but you know what I mean? It's like, is it really worth all the work? Like nobody's, you know what I mean? Like the more, like when you're writing a story like this, it's like, oh shit, like everybody is picking it apart and dissecting it. But that's you know, that's the price of being talented.
It's kind of like when you have something, say you have a favorite fruit that comes in the season and then goes out in the season, you can't get it anymore. You know, so if you have, you know, apple pies and apples are in season, but now, you know, the apples aren't in season, this is your last apple pie, and you have one piece left, do you savor that last bite? It's sweet because you like the apple pie, but it's bitter that, you know, you ain't getting none for a long time now. So it's kind of a situation like that, and you're dealing with a TV show that you don't want to end, but it's gonna end and you're never gonna see it again. So you get the bittersweet just from that alone. Is a bittersweet and puts the TV show writers in a bad spot of how to end it. But when you look at the Daenerys Jon Snow situation, the bittersweet ending, I don't think that it's hard to see exactly how that's going to end. You got to look at what motivates both characters. And Dany's motivation is to get the Iron Throne. John's motivation is to defeat the White Walkers. To have a bittersweet ending means both of them can't get what they want. I think that Jon will defeat the White Walkers, so that means Daenerys is not going to sit the Iron Throne. So there's a little bittersweet ending for the both of them right there. It's not going to end right there, but that's the basis of their bittersweetness. If it's just they both get what they want, then it's too sweet. So one of them,
or they get what they yeah, and that was a really good analogy and made me feel really sad about pie. That was actually really good because you're right. Like I don't have self-control, so I just lie to myself and say that I have more pie after that. But no, but like the way I take it is like Dany wanting to break the wheel. She like it's exactly what you're talking about. Like but like she says she wants to break that wheel. Well, that means she can't rule. You know what I mean? So like that's bittersweet in itself. So if she truly wants to do that, which she probably will come to want to do if she's still alive, it's getting what you want, but that means that you can't play that part. Like it's like I just want to change everything. I want to breaking the wheel is not Dany being queen by any means. It's especially not Jon being king. There's more of a just reason for that because he is somewhat, I argue, with the reluctancy of his leader. He is that guy that acts like he doesn't want anything. Like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'll do it if you want me to, boss. That he's George Washington. I always say the guy that wore the officer uniform every day to the Congress, the only person. And then when they picked the general, they're like, oh, you. He's like, oh, me? Shucks. They're like, yeah, you're the guy that's the only general here. But yeah, I think that like Dany breaking the wheel, like that involves her stepping away, right? Being hands off. How has Dany dealt with that in the past? Not well. So like, yeah, you
gotcha. But I guess when you deal with bittersweet, someone in the chat says, what would be the bittersweet ending? I gave you part of it, but then you have to go and you have to look at what Dany and Jon have in common. You have to look at what is their common goals here. A second, let me shut this off real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. But we gotta look at what is their common goal that they're going to trying to get. And if you look at their common goal, you can see that it's children. Daenerys wants to have a kid, but she doesn't believe that she can have a kid. Jon wants to have a kid, but he doesn't want the kid to be a bastard. So when you look at the bittersweet ending for that, is that she can have a kid, and Jon's not going to be a bastard, so he'll be willing to have the kid. So that's the sweet part. The bitter part is they both can't be there to raise these babies. And that's how I think it ends for them. And I think that's your bittersweet ending all in a nutshell. Right there, when you put all those things together for those characters, that's what we're going to get there from them. So I think they're going to have a kid, but not both of them are going to be there to raise the kid in the end.
Yeah, it's getting what you want, but not in the way that you wanted it. In some cases, not getting what you want. Other characters serve different functions. Like the Mountain is somebody good. Like George's main thing. That he talks about too, like even more than like the anti-war, again, not totally anti-war because he's not pacifist, but is about what he really doesn't like about war is why people follow people in the war without it being in their best interest. So you have like the Mountain not the Mountain, I'm sorry, the Hound, who's fuck Joffrey, but he's killing for Joffrey. You know what I mean? People acting against their own interests. So like I said this last night, Jaime and the Hound, I predict, will die in this final battle with the White Walkers, but they will finally get to put their sword to something that they can stand behind, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that's bittersweet, right? Mm-hmm. Like they wanted to be like just, they wanted to use their skills for something that's just, but that means if your skills are the sword, then you're gonna die by it too. So that's bittersweet. So it's like certain things are gonna pan out. A lot of times if they pan out, they're not gonna pan out in the way they wanted them to. It's like, hey, guess what? Like things are changing, but you're not a part of them, or whether that means you're not alive or not. But yeah, I mean, the apple pie analogy was both sad and very correct. Makes you just really, I'm really subjective to that. Now you should sell apple pie. I think we all get it. That, I think somebody asked, what our worst, it said bittersweet ending. What would be your most satisfying ending? They said fuck bittersweet ending. What would be, and they you don't have to censor fuck in my chat. But thank you. And I think we had a super chat in there as well.
Most
doesn't have a
most satisfying ending. If I had to pick a most satisfying ending, and you wanted to really make this the Game of Thrones, and that this is what it's all about, the Game of Thrones. I think the best ending they could do is that they could make Jon live and make him forced to marry Cersei Lannister for the realm, just because he has no choice but to do it. I think that would be a great satisfying ending, because you would have Jon in a reluctant marriage that he doesn't want to be in, but it would just show that he has to do what he has to do for the realm. We've seen this over and over again, whether it's Robb Stark or whatever, that you have to have a political marriage in the end for this all to work and everything to come together, and Jon to be forced into a marriage like that and unite the Starks, the Lannisters, and the Targaryens, just like the War of the Roses would unite all the major houses. I think that would be the best ending for me, the most satisfying ending, to show that, you don't get what you want in this world. It just is not, but this is the way it goes down. So to me, that would be the best ending. I know it has no chance of happening, but that would be the best ending to me.
Yeah, I like that. It's tough. I can do a scenario, and part of this was inspired by oh, I know that it was Joanna, one of my curators, was talking about Sansa being eventually finding the throne. You know how Ned was came in on Jaime after the Mad King, and walked up on him, and Jaime saw the disgust, because he had killed the Mad King, obviously, and it's like, if I stabbed him in the belly, would you look at me in a different light, blah blah blah. The idea is Sansa, Jon walks into the Iron into the Red Keep, and Jaime's standing next to the Iron Throne, and same way Ned, and he says, don't worry, just like he says to Ned, and he says it to Jon. He says, don't worry, I'm just holding it, Stark. And he's holding it for Sansa, though, because he fulfills his oath then to Catelyn.
Mm-hmm.
You get a ruler that knows, and it's like poetic too. So like I thought that would be like beautiful, but then like I don't know what to do with Jon, because like Jon don't want to fight like anymore. Like I guess he gets like cirrhosis or something. I don't know. Like the dude's got to die or something. Like it's like what do you want to be like? He's gonna go wanderlust over and I'm real big on like Sansa like getting like something to do in Jaime. I'm a real sucker for Jaime as well. So like, but when it comes to the main characters, like that's the thing, and that it makes it better for me, because like I don't know what would make me happiest. I know what I think I need. I think the story, like, because I look at it in a kind of a structured, not kind of in a structured sense, not all the time, but for content. I believe that if you make videos on YouTube, that you should, be studied in what you're talking about, and you should focus and try to take an intellectual approach to it. So yeah, I do look at the story in a structured sense. So I think that Jon and Dany need to definitely achieve certain things for our story, meaning that Jon needs to convey the whole, you don't need to be like Tony's just talking about, of noble blood. I think that Dany needs to probably break the wheel by turning down power, because that's what breaking the wheel is, and that's probably not something she thought of. So that's poetic justice right there. Not that I'm like, oh, stick it to her. I don't believe both of them would be dead, just full disclosure, because I'm a betting man. I don't claim to think that both of them be alive at the end of this. I think one will definitely be dead, and there'll be a kid that'll be getting raised for sure. They only said it 7 times in one of the last episodes that she could still get pregnant. But yeah, like I think that Jon needs to convey that properly, meaning like he needs to do some sort of just conclusion to this warfare and add to the rule after the warfare. And Dany needs to break the wheel by simply not taking the wheel, because that's breaking the wheel, that's like, King Henry, saying, oh, I want to break the wheel, and then taking another wife and cutting her head off. You can't keep doing the shit if you're trying to break the thing that your family was, for 300 some years, the dynasty, so yeah, I think that people have function that they need to fulfill, and that's like my saddest that's where my satisfaction comes from. But like, it's just, if I'm looking at it as like a fanboy, yeah, I want to see that sappy ass shit I said about like Jaime and Sansa. But like, if I was in the writer's room, yeah, I wouldn't write that.
Yeah, Jaime,
so it's interesting. Fanboys don't know what's right for them. That's
Jamie's
true.
not.
You know what I mean? It's the ability to separate it. It's so true. You know, we think we want, like, that's what I think is like in my head. I'm like, oh, that'd be so awesome. And this is not the first time I've said that scenario. And it's not even completely like that was talked about with, like I said, one of my curators before, like, and I thought that was really good. And I really like that, but I wouldn't write that in because I don't think that would properly do what I think the story needs to do. So there's a separation.
Jamie's got to go. He can't. It just wouldn't be a
He's
good
dying.
story. It'd just be a bad storyline if Jamie had too much blood on his hands. So the only way I don't think anything cures the blood in his hands, but the only way Jamie people justify him is if he sacrifices himself to save a Stark, most likely Jon Snow. I believe that Jamie Lannister in the final battle will pull the Howland Reed and stab the Night's King in the back, and that will allow Jon to land the finishing blow. I made up that theory years ago, and I think that's definitely going to happen when it's all. I think that's Jamie's arc right there. Jon Snow is not going to live when it's all said and done because you're not going to have a dead man sitting on the Iron Throne. He's already died. There's no way. And anytime I've seen any movie that anyone's ever died, every time they fulfilled what they had to do, they die again. So he's out of here. As for Daenerys, as I said, if she's not going to sit the Iron Throne, which she's not, there's no way she's just going to accept the common role of a common person. So she's going to have to die also. Mm-hmm. So I think that eliminates all of them, and it puts Sansa Stark on the Iron Throne, raising their kids better than Catelyn did. You know, having more respect than Catelyn did for Jon and being mean. Sansa won't be mean. She will be happy to raise these kids and tell them stories about their parents. And I think that's how it ends when it's all said and done. I think Gendry will be a husband in the show. In the books, he'll be Edric Storm. That's why his nickname is Ned. He'll take the Stark name when it's all said and done. And that's how it goes down. So, but that's how I think it ends for the show. It's Gendry and Sansa on the Iron Throne raising Jon and Dany's kids.
Yeah, I definitely I'm pretty much 65% on with that, and I'd bet money with the raising of the kids through Sansa. I don't know, it gets with Gendry, it gets a little bit unsure for me at least. I'm not so sure that they're not above having him marry Arya, you know, because that is a technical subversion of that, you know, Arya's character. You know, she never wanted to be the princess, and she becomes one, and that's an out. And I'll tell you what, I say a lot of times I wouldn't sit in the writer's room and let that happen. They would tell me to leave. But you know what I mean? Like, I would let that happen. I would let her marry him.
Yeah, and it's going to be Sansa. It's going to be a Stark, but the Stark is going to be Sansa.
Well, no, they're not on the throne. They're at like Storm's End.
Yeah, no, it's going to be Sansa. It's not going to be Arya's out of here. She's just not.
No, but Arya marries Gendry at Storm, and they go to Storm's End. Sansa sits the throne, and she doesn't marry like Elizabeth.
Yeah, I don't know, but that would be. No, I don't.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just clarifying that I don't think Arya is on the throne.
If it was Brienne, I would see Brienne, because Brienne is still, even though she has been a brutish lady, she's still a lady. She's always had lady feeling. She's always had, you know, attraction to Renly, attraction to Jen. She wants to be a woman. Arya has no desire at all that we've ever seen. I mean, you've seen her look at Gendry one time, like in a sexual way, but besides that, you know, it was never really that something that she's been, that she wants to be a mother and everything else. That's Sansa. Sansa's down to have babies and be a mother and do all.
Well, she was. And then she realized that cannot be so good. So the question, no, my only argument against that is what happens after all of this if she's still alive, you know, and she's got to get some, because she's about to get some death that it seems like she ain't ready for. You don't got to convince me to say that I just think Arya should die. I've said it time and time again that I think it's going to be a huge problem if they don't kill her, because I think it's going to drop the ball on that message. But I do see them, because she's such a fan favorite, possibly because you get away with it. I'm just saying, you get away with it because Sansa wanted to be the princess, and then she was the princess, and she found out how horrid it was. So then her being queen, she takes more of the Elizabeth role. You know what I mean? And she doesn't get married. She raises the kids of Jon and Dany, who are gone from the story, because like you said, it comes to that point where it's like, we can't have them in the room because it's a problematic, you know what I mean? So it's like, how do they go about getting them out of the room is where you come into where you know, I mean, whatever you judge, you know how well it's done. But yeah, like Arya going to Storm's End with Gendry, you know, he gets it because he's a Baratheon, and they legitimize him, and they go, I'm not, guys, I would right away, right now, you get me in that room, I'd kill her right away. I would say she dies in the battle with the White Walkers. In an epic way, we'll make it fun. But I'm just saying, if I have to have another out, I'm saying she marries him, and I actually would be okay with that. Um, I wouldn't be loving it, but I wouldn't be like, that's the worst thing ever, because it's a subversion of it. And there's a little like what Tony's speaking to is there is only one moment of foreshadowing for it, so it doesn't constitute it, but there's that little bit of the subversion of her character. Like all she wanted to do was avoid that, but then she lives this life, and then she realizes, you know, I mean, you're a fighter, you know what I mean? You can only fight for so long, man. You know, I mean, we keep fighting, but it ain't fun. It ain't glorious.
No, that
When you're in that rain, it ain't glorious. You know what I mean? Like it's like it takes a mentality, but you can that beating gets old. You know what I mean? Like no matter how much you win, no matter how much you lose, you know what I mean? Like that warrior lifestyle. Like if that's all you indulge yourself in, and you never, you know, when you're a married man. You have a family. You know what I mean, right? Sorry to disclose that.
I'm not married. You talking about me?
Oh you. My point is, you've been like Arya's never been in a relationship.
No, let me put.
I'm sorry. Yeah, to come to conclusions.
The Don is not married, baby.
My bad. Yeah, so my bad. But what I'm saying is that you have been in you have experienced the other side. Arya has only been a warrior, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So to think that she would never want to indulge in the other side.
Sure.
You know,
I think she
that's
will.
what I'm saying.
Not at this stage in her life. I think she's still too young for that. She's still a young girl, especially when you're dealing with Arya in the book. She's dumb.
Yeah, no, you know I'm not. So don't make me the pervert. Yeah, I'm not saying the 9-year-old in the books or the 13-year-old.
I just think she's too young to do that. Maybe later on in life, I think she'll settle down and do all that. But right now, I just think she's gonna want that adventure to go off in the boat and explore. I think that's Arya's. Sansa's the age. She's Gendry's age. Gendry's dumb older than her. She's Gendry's age. And Sansa's someone who wanted a highborn prince. And she's going to look down on Jon Snow because he's a bastard. And she's going to say, hey, look what that bastard did. He really saved the realm. She's not going to look down on Gendry. And that's going to be her man. And that unites. If you deal with the War of the Roses ending, that how it ended was the two houses got united. This unites all the houses at the end. It unites the Baratheons, the Targaryens, and it unites the Starks. And if Gendry happens to be the daughter of Cersei and Robb Baratheon, that even unites the Lannisters and puts all of the major houses under one roof right there with one child coming. So I think it's more likely for it to go down that way, and Arya just to go off into the sunset.
Yeah, I just jump at 2 generations or 3 generations above, and because you have Elizabeth of York and Henry of Lancaster, Henry VII, that marry in the Plantagenets are like, have you ever seen that bloodline? It's crazy. It loops away out.
Yeah.
So because Owen Tudor, he was like, he was a scoundrel. I won't get too much into it, but the Tudor claim was quite loose. But yeah, you're right. They obviously the Tudor Rose, the York and Lancaster, but I do more so think of it as, because we're all gonna tell George, fuck you, on you're not writing allegory, you're writing some allegory. But it's just like, Elizabeth is what I like. I don't know, and it's all up for grabs. I think it would make more sense for Sansa not to get married, like, because she's just so disillusioned at this point, especially in the show. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think that can't happen. Like those are like that's what's great about it. It's the only time I ever have a real issue with a theory is because like that's what somebody want. Like if I were to just push that Jaime like sappy shit that I said, on you, like I'm like, and that's what's gonna happen, Tony. Like that's clearly like just like what like emotionally I think would be like neat. I'm like, well, that'd be fun. You know what I mean? Like there's no proof for it, nothing. I just really like that. But it's like there's the argument for both of them. And it's an interesting concept to think who sits in the seat of power, and is it going to be a singular, like a single seat of power and so forth. So I always love talking to you, man, and you are always just ready to knock it out and cover any aspect. You don't need no talking points or anything like that.
No
and you are true.
No fluffer.
What's that?
I don't need no fluffer. No fluffer.
No, yeah. No, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't. I mean, because sometimes I like talking points, so now I don't want to feel like I'm getting fluffer when I use them. So, you just fucked me up, man. No, no. So what are your plans for this? Tony was sick, and he has joined us. If you can't tell, and he's been in the ring again. So, hey, just keep cutting that weight, man. Go against McGregor. But what are your plans in all seriousness for the season? What can people expect from Teflon for the final season?
Well, as always, we all know that the Don Tony Teflon is the inventor of the pregame Game of Thrones show, and I'll definitely be back again with another pregame show before the season starts. And I'm going to probably be joining people on their live stream on their after show. I don't think I'm going to do a after show, but I think I will do a live reaction where my man Sean sit down and watch it live with us. So pre-game show and then live reaction. Come watch the Game of Thrones season with. And as always, I'll have a video breaking down everything and giving predictions for the next series during the whole week. I think that is definitely how it's going to go down when it's all said and done.
I love it. And I hope to be invited to one of those pre-gamers.
Of course. When I do the pre-game show, the way I run it is that every half an hour I bring on another guest. It's always a different guest every half an hour up in there. So you're definitely welcome to rock with me. I would love to have you.
I want to go through that rotating door, man. No, I love it. And I love the way that you, inject your ideas, because it's fun. And it's not just oh man, I'm such a big fan of the show. It's got that essence in it, but it comes from a place of intelligence, and that's a hard thing to straddle of being fun and being intelligent at the same time. Because if you break down a lot of what some people say, it's just a whole bunch of I didn't like that or I like that. But it's like I love having this discourse with you, and I'm always grateful to have you on, and happy that we have crossed paths. And hopefully these prequels are gonna be soon.
Yeah, I think it's a year. It's right next year. So it's supposed to be right out. They said as soon as this Game of Thrones ends, it's supposed to be out the following year. So the prequel will be right there. And as always, it's always good to chill with you, man. It's when you're a boxer like I am and you are, and you have a certain amount of respect for people that who have laced up those gloves, went through that training, stepped between those ring ropes, and taken shots and delivered shots. Whether you win or whether you lose, it's a certain amount of respect that you get for people who have been willing to do that. It's not like any other sport. It's not like playing basketball. It's not like playing football. People are trying to take your head off, trying to make you piss blood when they hit you. This is what you go through, but it's the admiration and respect that you get for people. And I have that respect for you as soon as I heard all your stories, just from the fact that I knew the type of person you are, because those people who are willing to do that and have been through that, they understand what the meaning of respect truly means. And that's why I've always had respect for you and everything else. And that's why I always rock with you. Anytime you need me, I'll always be here. And I love hanging out with you, man. So thank you again for having me on. Thanks to everybody in the chat who came through and rocked with us. You know what I mean? I really do truly appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, and yeah, I won't even say anything more about that, because that just, yeah, that's right. You know what I mean? It's when you have a disagreement, and you have that mindset, I don't have those disagreements unless they're worth it, unless I'm ready to have that disagreement. So yeah, we don't tiptoe around it, and we're not, we understand. And like my proposal, I wish we lived closer. We would do the sparring review where we'd be in the ring. How awesome would that be? Just for us. I don't care. Maybe nobody would like it because we'd be stiffing jabs, but to have us go 3 2-minute rounds sparring and just go back and forth, giving it a review is my dream. It's probably not, it's not a vehicle I'd probably like if somebody pitch that to me. I'd be like, no, that's not good, but I would love it. And no, I got nothing but yeah, dude. I gotta get off my ass, man.
I think about doing a training video and showing me hitting the speed bag and the heavy bag and putting it up there, but I don't know if people want to see that stuff. And I'm pretty good at the speed bag too. It looks really good, so maybe I'll do that and show people how I rock in there and do that stuff like that. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll admit, every time I go to Dick's Sporting's Good, I still go and hit. I go and knock that bag real quick, and I look at them, I'm like, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and you do it the cheap way too. You don't sit there and practice your hooks. You know what to do. You bunny rabbit that shit.
Oh,
It's like,
well, I
but
just
no, I,
one at a time, two at a time. So I'm good at the speed bag. I'm very good.
yeah. I mean, I'm just saying. I used to be, you know, tough. I don't know. No, it's definitely a pleasure, and yeah, I can't wait. And I've said it multiple times. I don't know how good my lip service does, but like we talked about before, when I put a name in my mouth, you know, it's for a reason, and it meaning like I say, if you're looking for endgame theories, Tony Teflon, you know, go, because I love your theories. They're good. They're good. They're theories that have excitement about them, but they come from a place of intelligence. It's like, yeah, I can see a lot of that happening. If I disagree, it's not like I just like I'm never like, oh man, that's just completely like absurd, which that happens a lot. If you watch too many videos, it's great. You know what I mean? So and it's a rare quality. It's something I'm still trying to master. You know, is finding that line to walk between trying to be just too intellectual and having fun with it. So it's an honor to stream with you. It's an honor to know you, and it's an honor to potentially do their sparring video together. So yeah, thank you guys. Subscribe to Tony if you haven't, like you guys already haven't. But I plan on not doing any like Westworld. We'll continue doing before the dust settles and stuff like that. But with Game of Thrones, I will be doing it after live stream, but it won't be the night of. Just because of the saturation, you know. So I haven't decided. I have to see what the scheduling is going to be like. So I will at least have one recap video, not explained recap video. It might have explained because of the algorithm, but remind you, I'm never explaining something. And I will make sure to try to do one live stream as close after the end of the show as possible without it getting lost in the mix, because you know Game of Thrones is a pretty popular genre. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. Make sure to check out Tony. Make sure to support me on Patreon if you support creativity. A few dollars from you a month, barely noticeable for you, makes a huge difference for me to pay for Adobe to maybe get a better camera, maybe get some lighting, and that'd be great. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you soon.
Peace and stay safe.